Dehancer. Since I first got into filmmaking, I've always wanted to make my films look like they were filmed, like they were actually shot on film stock. And I've tried several methods over the years. I've tried plugins, I've tried overlays, I've tried using adjustment layers to add halation and bloom, and they've all had their advantages, but also their drawbacks. And all my work from uni onwards has felt the mark of my experimentation. Super 8, 16mm, 35mm, Todd AO, VistaVision, if you can name it, I've wanted to shoot on it. Unfortunately, with the exception of perhaps Super 8, film can be prohibitively expensive. Not to mention I've grown very accustomed to the benefits of shooting on digital. Longer shooting time, instant playback, no development costs. I imagine if you're like me, then you grew up around the emergence of digital cameras. It's all you've ever known. But digital isn't new to you. It doesn't have that appeal as a new innovative technology. You want that look that only film stock can offer. People always want what they can't have, and I want to shoot on film. But my wallet says differently. So thankfully I was reached out to by Dehancer to test their film emulation plugin. So quick transparency, although I was given this plugin by Dehancer, all my thoughts are my own, there was no conditions attached, all I had to do is just give you my experience. It's also worth noting that the plugin is available for different softwares. You can use it for DaVinci, you can use it for Final Cut Pro, there's even an iOS app. Unfortunately for me, I'm an Android peasant, so I can't demonstrate it to you. But for this case, I'm going to be using the version for Premiere Pro and After Effects, and I can hear you shouting already. I know that DaVinci is the true practitioner's choice of grading software, and I agree that it is by and large the best at color grading. But a couple of things. 1. I'm not that proficient at grading it in DaVinci, so any thoughts or critiques I'd give would be extremely limited in nature. I'm much more comfortable in Premiere. 2. There are a lot of other quality videos covering Dehancer on DaVinci, from people a lot more knowledgeable than me. So for the sake of diversity of ideas, I'm going to give a fresh perspective via an idiot's take on Premiere. 3. A major influence on me choosing to do it on Premiere is simply put, convenience. If you're like me, then the main appeal of Dehancer is that you can get filmic results easily and quickly. And whilst DaVinci may be more conducive to color grading, it also requires a lot more work. Lastly, it's my show and I want to do it on Premiere. So, let's test it out. So I'm fairly happy with the flow of this, but it's missing that something special. All the editing and music in the world couldn't make this footage seem vibrant. So let's begin. So we've opened our project in Premiere, and we've got a lock on our timeline and audio. We're happy, or at least happy enough. So if we go into our effects tab and search for Dehancer, it should come up. Now you can apply the effect straight to your clip by simply dragging and dropping it on, but for this demonstration I'm going to create an adjustment layer first and add the effect to that. I'll get into the reasons for this later. And voila! The world is now officially our oyster. Although, before we truly get going, we are going to want to choose the correct input. These are the base choices, but if we click on here, we get many more. So in this case, I shot it on the Pocket 4K. Select the Pocket 4K. And from here, we can have all the fun customizing our footage. Here is what I was able to cook up. So what did I do in Dehancer to get that look? Well, the beauty of Dehancer compared to other film emulation techniques is the amount of choice. For others it's a one and done overlay or slap on effect, with your only choice of customization being editing the base footage. But with Dehancer, we have lots of elements we can change. So, to begin, we have film stock, and as you can see, there's a lot to choose from. We have classics such as Kodak 250D or Ilford HP, but we've even got some weird and experimental ones like Lomochrome Purple and Metropolis, or even Polaroid Sepia. So experiment about and find the look you want. In addition to film stocks, you can even choose what print type you like. For example, they have the classic Kodak 2383, but I personally like to use the Kodak glossy paper. With our stock and print out of the way, we can now get to the good stuff. And just for reference, I just dialed in my contrast and colour boost to this amount. From here, we can select what grain we'd like, with amounts ranging from 8 to 60mm. We can even also change the level of bloom and halation we'd like. Then, and this is the part I really like, we can even add film damage, film breathing, and gate weave, which go really far in terms of making a convincingly filmic look. I also found using the analog range limiter a particularly effective way of recreating the film look. Now so far we've had a look at the pre-existing choices like 60mm grain or 35mm film damage or Super 8 halation, but it's definitely worth noting that all these effects can also be fully customized. For example, with grain, not only can we control the amount and size, but also the intensity of it in the highlights, midtones, and shadows. Or with film damage, we can control its size, amount, frequency, and prominence, all with these controls. Outside of the elements we much more strongly associate with the classical film look, there are also advanced colour controls, not only the basic stuff like saturation, contrast, and exposure, but again more advanced controls like colour heads, which can be moved either individually or together. In fact, given that we can completely disable film stock artifacts like grain and halation, we can also use the plugin as a rather versatile colour grader. There's even an option to export your finished look as a LUT. Unfortunately, from what I could see, these LUTs only export colour and not other elements like grain and halation, so you may want to record that info down if you want that exact look again. But I could go on forever talking about all the ways we could dial in our desired look, but the good thing is, it's not just an overlay sitting on top, we're actually altering the footage. The thing I dig most is its accessibility whilst also being extremely versatile. Too often with plugins have I found them either overwhelming with the amount of options or their UI, or they're overly simple and they're a one size fits all. That said, whilst I did find it easy enough to get into, it is quite hard to master. During my experimentation, I found a lot of the options did very similar things. Of course, it is a bit of an oversimplification, but I did often find myself making minor endless tweaks, the look altering back and forth. But this is a time issue. Like all things, if you spend enough time experimenting and exploring, you will master it. It should also be noted that the plugin comes with the ability to toggle on false colour, which is my personal go-to for exposure, and colour peaking to help you get the right look. But there definitely is a learning curve when it comes to truly getting the most out of this plugin. Which again, if you're using the Premier version for simplicity, may not be desirable. But you can still get filmic footage straight off the bat. I must also mention the other drawback I found whilst using Dehancer is that it's very GPU intensive, so your file sizes are going to be much larger. Now, this isn't a problem if A, you have the storage space, and B, you pre-plan when you need to export by, so you have plenty of time to render ahead of time. The other problem with it being GPU intensive is that it can make viewing your timeline quite problematic. If you're trying to judge the timing of a cut or the flow of the music, the last thing you want is laggy playback. Again, there is an easy workaround. If you remember earlier, I applied the effect to an adjustment layer, so this way when I want to play back my footage, I can easily disable the effect and turn it back on again. I also found it beneficial to create a separate sequence, where I would place in my footage and an adjustment layer, and then create my desired look. Then, when it came time to export the footage, I would simply copy and paste the adjustment layer into my main project timeline, then export. That's how I did this video. Again, I understand though that if the lighting or colour of your footage is inconsistent and needs to be tweaked from shot to shot, it might be a bit overwhelming to have 100 different adjustment layers on your timeline. So, final thoughts, although there were some things that weren't the best, there was nothing that killed it for me, just stuff that you have to bear in mind. And of course, film stock is a very distinct look, so it's not suitable for every project. But if you're like me and you love the film look, you'll have a lot of fun with this plugin. It has a lot of bells and whistles. It comes in two plans, a pro version, but also a light version which has less features. You can also choose how long you have it for, so if you need it for a project but you don't find that you have it in the budget or that you feel the need for the full version, you do have other options. But if you are interested, there is a discount code below in the description. So, what do you think? Do you have a favourite film stock or print or custom preset that you like to use? Let me know and I'll see you about.